Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Reed. We'll be joined by our guests here in a few, probably about a couple minutes. You're going to be waiting a little bit, but the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listedfrederick.com. The title of this episode is The Beltway Brawl, which is, we got to highlight the joint practices that have happened this week. Obviously, we haven't recorded since Monday. A lot has transpired. I felt like, me personally, I have learned a lot about this football team. Reed, we got to go to you first, but before we get your opinion, just want to say safe travels to Michael Hall. He is on his way to his bachelor party down in Florida on a flight currently, so safe travels to you, Mike. Have fun, brother. But Reed, the Beltway Brawl, man, let's talk about joint practices. Number one, the first question I have, what is the most surprising takeaway from training camp?
The thing that we haven't seen in years past, like we know that the defensive line in particular, like Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, they're dogs. They're dogs, just straight up. But the fact that the entire team, Emmanuel Forbes, all these guys are out there throwing, getting ready to fight. They were all over the place. They're physical, man. I think that I don't want to like put too much on Snyder leaving because obviously like he's not on the field. Like that shouldn't have affected anything. But I feel like just being re-energized. It's like these guys aren't scared of anything. I think that's a good thing going into the season. Ravens are a physical team. Dogged them. Just dogged them out like Kyle on the weekend getting dogged out by everybody. Just a gang of people.
Dude. No, and seriously, Mark Andrews, his reaction to Danny Johnson, that pass breakup, that was really odd to me. Obviously, he was very frustrated. Everyone is. You're out in the sun. Everyone's hot and they're sweaty. Nobody wants to be out there in those conditions, and I get it. It's just the immediate reaction of throwing a guy onto his back. I mean, what is the point? Like, the escalation doesn't make sense unless you were literally frustrated with something else going on, and that kind of, like, boiled over.
Well, you kind of saw that the next day, too. He was slamming his helmet and shit. He was not a happy camper.
Yeah, and to your point about that, it said a lot about the football team to me because, Ron Rivera talked about we don't want to have any bullshit go on. We want to be able to focus, not take anything away. They didn't start anything, and obviously it's been pummeled into them to be able to create turnovers, and that's what you can tell that Emmanuel Forbes was messing with those wide receivers that was catching the footballs. But the one thing that we know about the best and most elite corners in this league, that's what they do to wide receivers. They screw with them. They try to get into their head, to get them pissed off. And that dude threw a punch at his helmet, and Emmanuel Forbes didn't run away. He threw with him. And then Derek Forrest was there helping him out with Cam Curl. Yeah. And I felt like that confidence, that camaraderie is only built during those situations. And I'm sure as much as Ron Rivera probably hated that happening and taking away from the learning part of practice, I think it was necessary for this team because of everything going on that they know that they have each other's backs. I think that was very, very important and valuable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like the Mark Andrews thing, Mark Andrews is, first of all, he's a knockoff Travis Kelce. Second of all, he's 6'6", 240, somewhere around there. He belly-to-belly suplexed a 5'9", 170-pound cornerback after the play because he was that upset. And then when Deron Payne was like, all right, take your helmet off then if you're about it, he walked away, of course, because let's be honest, it's Deron Payne. But it was funny to me.
Yeah, and I put that in our group chat, and they were like, well, obviously Deron Payne has like a bunch of weight on Mark Andrews. And I was like, and he doesn't have it on Danny Johnson? Danny Johnson is listed at 190. Mark Andrews is listed at 250. And Deron Payne's listed at 320. So I'm pretty sure Mark Andrews kind of realized that whatever he did to Danny Johnson, he doesn't want to have happen with Deron Payne. And so he was kind of scared about that. But that's what that kind of thing tells me. The big brothers are here. Like, you're not going to pick on our little bro like that, dude, especially when you're a bigger guy in Mark Andrews. Like, okay, if you're that big, dude, then let's go take your helmet off. And I absolutely just freaking loved to see that. It's something that's been needed here in Washington for quite some time. But the next question I want to ask, brother, now let's talk about who impressed you the most at this training camp and joint practices versus the Ravens. I asked Sam on Monday who, going into this, was it a bigger matchup for the offense or the defense? Personally, for me, I thought it was going to be a harder task and challenge for the defense more so than the offense, like Sam thought. So go after this joint practices. Who stood out to you?
Who stood out to me?
Yeah.
Sorry, there's somebody. DoorDash came. I couldn't get up and go answer the door, so I was just sitting there like, I don't know. Um, Obviously, I mean, you talked about Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes.
Well,
I
not
think
any of the usuals. Let's make this challenging.
that's what I'm saying. I said you touched on
Oh
Emmanuel
my
Forbes already. He's like the obvious one that you think, but Sam Howell, dude. I know that everybody wants to talk about Sam Howell all the time,
We
but
didn't even get to see him. The Ravens broadcast wouldn't
I know,
show
I
the first
know,
team offense in 11 on 11s.
I know. But it's funny because like Sam Howell is out there making plays. I mean, of course, he has his ups and downs, but like you see that sidearm release and stuff like that on the run for a touchdown to De'Ami Brown. Everything that he does, it just seems like I don't think I've had a lot of confidence in a quarterback since Kirk, and like it just seems like the more and more I see from Sam Howell, the more the Commanders put out there, and of course, it could be on purpose, but I just get more and more confident with him, and like I think Sam Howell's actually going to be something now. I'm not like questioning it. Like I really do. I'm trending in that direction where like I think we may have a pretty good guy, and we haven't even played a game yet.
Yeah.
So of course that's but
This guy isn't the answer to my question, but I do want to ask the following question in regards to him. Ricky Stromberg, I think, is my most surprising guy that I'm taking away from these
yeah,
joint practices.
yeah,
Obviously, him working with a second team now as a guard, not center, like he was with the third team.
mm-hmm.
Nolan Laufenberg is now getting the third team reps at center. But Ricky Stromberg really impressed me going against some very good competition. I think Travis Jones is the defensive tackle for the Ravens. That's
Yeah. He's
actually
big as hell and athletic, man.
pretty
I
good.
remember
And
him
Ricky
coming
did.
out.
I posted a clip on Twitter. You could check it out at the Burgundy Zone of a couple highlights from joint practices yesterday, and one of those was Ricky Stromberg really using his hands against a
Yeah,
great defensive tackle like that, using his leverage, and I thought he did a great job. And we've heard up to this point that he's kind of a developmental guy, and obviously Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl didn't send an invite obviously to Stromberg because they didn't think he had a draftable grade. But after that little short clip, and I think that guy is ready to go, just at a second team backup level.
yeah,
But my
right.
following question to you was, with Chris Paul, has it kind of like just been quietly assumed now that Chris Paul is taking over the starter reps? Because he's been in there at left guard, and it's not like we're hearing questions about left guard. Like,
Right. Yeah, and that I think that's the biggest thing. Like everybody else, like Andrew Wiley, specifically, like he struggled, of course, during the first preseason game. If whenever that happens, you hear about it. Like if an offensive lineman's not playing well, you hear about it. But when they're doing their job, they're doing all right. You don't really hear about it. And I think Chris Paul, I guess, like you can just kind of pencil him in at this point. I mean, with everything that's happened with Sadiq, just unfortunately not being able to rely on him with the injuries and stuff. Chris Paul, I mean, I think he's done winning championships in the NBA, and I think he's here to stay. Yeah,
yeah, that's a great bit. And I just had the question because, like, with these joint practices, it's already assumed that Chris Paul is going to be there at left guard. And it's not like we heard his name a lot. The focus has changed over to Andrew Wiley more so, right? And
right.
the one other guy is Cornelius Lucas, who started at left
Yeah,
tackle at the end of practice at joint practices. Is they gave Leno some extra time off. So he worked with Morgan Moses. Speaking of, did you see Morgan Moses during the brawl?
yeah.
Dude, Morgan Moses, a former guest, one of the first player guests that we have on this show. I have nothing
Yeah,
but love for Morgan.
he's the
But
nicest dude in the world
what
too.
was Morgan doing
Yeah,
running in there and pushing, attacking a Washington player, then backing away and leaving? Like,
yeah.
did you
Especially
not
somebody
like that
who,
guy? What's
yeah.
going on?
I think. I mean, I do. I don't want to like justify anything that the Ravens did, especially some kind of bullshit like that. But like, I get it. If you're facing your former team, the team that drafted you, the team that really made you, that you became a starter on, and like then things didn't really work out like they're supposed to. I remember we were surprised when Morgan left. But yeah, I get it. He flew in there, man, and he's always been kind of that kind of guy too, though, where he's gonna have his teammates back. But yeah, it's a little weirder that he's itching to fight like that against us.
Yeah, we
But hey,
obviously knew how protective he was with Dwayne
yeah,
Haskins and helping Dwayne, and obviously he's a guy who has a more protective mindset about him. It's just like you being so close to Washington in a way. When we interviewed him, he was just had a house built in Virginia,
yeah,
right? And so he has connection to the area. Just it kind of felt weird, like he
yeah.
was getting
I mean,
back
he
at
went to Virginia too.
some
Yeah,
frustration. It just felt
all
weird. It's
right.
like Morgan, don't do that,
Yeah,
man.
come on, man. What are you doing? But at the
Come,
same time, it is training camp. I get it. It's tempers are flaring, man.
dude. And I
Tired of
will, as much as confidence I have built in Sam Howell, like I love the fact that the command team, like they're putting out tweets and those videos of Sam Howell throwing the sidearm. I love to see that. But the one big takeaway for me, dude, Lamar was like 11 of 26 per
Yeah.
Pedro Smith.
Right.
That was kind of, I saw it on, like, when I watched that feed, I was thinking to myself on 11 on 11s, their first team offense, like, they're like 0 for 4 to start. And
Right.
then, like, it wasn't like getting better. And obviously, it's not like Odell, like, they're not creating separation. It's like when Lamar has somebody open, he underthrows it. And then when
Yeah.
somebody's open and then Lamar puts a good ball on it, they're dropping it. It just, to me, the big takeaway from it was the first team offense of the Ravens is not as good as advertised.
So, well, see, the thing to remember though with like a
Or maybe it's
quarterback
just
like,
our defense.
well, the thing though to remember with a quarterback like Lamar is he's not going to be scrambling around at practice and during
Yeah,
scrimmages and stuff like he's going to in the game during the regular season, and that's
that's a good
literally
point.
what makes him special. So like we've all known. I mean, Lamar, he'll make some great plays. Obviously, he'll throw some fantastic balls, but he's not a consistent passer. He never has been. So like that doesn't necessarily surprise me. But like yeah, unfortunately, like as much as I want to hate Lamar, he's a gamer almost. During the regular season, during the game, that dude's going to do whatever he can to make a play, and 9 times out of 10, he's just more athletic than everybody, so it's going to work out, and he's going to create. But so that's what I took away from it. But at the same time, I mean, he's a former MVP. Defense showed up. We were dogging him the entire time. So
Yeah, let's
you know,
take this off the field real quick. The latest news to come out off the field regarding the Commanders, they got 2 new sponsorships. One being an old friend, familiar face that has not had a great time up until this point, but that being Anheuser-Busch. Bud Light is now the main drink of the Commanders. I said it on Twitter, if there's any fan base, any team that could save Bud Light, it's Washington.
yeah.
Do you know what I'm
The
saying?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I don't, dude. Just
And
straight up.
Verizon. Yesterday they announced Verizon. So
Yeah,
the Commander ownership are having 2 great days back to back
yeah.
and being able to really bring this stadium back and this experience back up to where it needs to be. I'm glad
Right.
that we're actually getting some feet under us.
Yeah. The Bud Light thing. I don't get why anybody cares anyway. No matter what, I mean, even if you like Bud Light, which you shouldn't because it's a shit beer anyway. But like, who cares? People do what they're gonna do. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But anyway, people that are saying that they're not gonna watch games and stuff because of that sponsorship, that's all it took. Really, you stuck it out through Snyder, but Bud Light's where you draw the line. I don't know. That just seems kind of weird to me. But hey, people, free country, you can do what you want. And shout out, hey, 2 new sponsors, man. That's awesome. Good for us.
No, seriously, it is, and I'm just like you in that sort of way. I'm not a big drinker, never have been, unless a short amount of time there was. I was going crazy there for a little bit, but besides that, I'm honestly I don't
By
really
short
care.
amount of time, do you mean 25 years of your life so
Yeah,
far?
but I just love the idea for the Commanders just getting that public back under them. It's
Yeah,
been very very necessary. And somebody made a great comment on Twitter by saying, "Well, hopefully this means that they won't have beer selling for $12." And
yeah,
that's where it kind of is a situation where the Commanders are like, we can get helped out because it'll be a great deal for our fans because it's not going to be as expensive. Where Bud Light is also winning in the situation by getting a major component and a very popular component to have them sponsor their beer. So it's a helping of both situations. I understand the relationship completely.
yeah. They're gonna. I heard, and no, this is just a rumor, but I heard that they're gonna bring in Dylan Mulvaney to be the next head coach of the Commanders too. On top of that, so,
That would
is it
make
Dylan or Devin
I have
Mulvaney?
no
I don't know.
idea, man.
I don't
That's too
care.
much
I
too
don't
much
know who it
stuff for
is.
me, man.
Yeah.
But now let's get back to the on the field stuff. What is your confidence level with the backups?
Mm, that's a good question. It depends. Like secondary, I'm very confident with the second. We have depth all over the secondary. Defensive line, confident. Linebackers, not confident. Offensive line, not as confident. Tight ends, I love the potential. I'm fairly confident. Wide receivers, we're 4 deep. I'm confident. Quarterback, we got the best backup in the NFL. Running backs, we got some fantastic running backs. So I'm pretty confident, but we definitely have our weaknesses. But I think overall, like if you just look at this roster, that's why I don't get why the national media hates us so much. Like we're pretty well put together. Of course, every team has their flaws, but we're
That
pretty
is
well.
saying that with confidence in Sam Howell, right? Like the media is
Right,
going off
right.
of what they know Washington as is
You,
the quarterback carousel not having sustainability or consistency from that position, and I
right.
understand that, but
Yeah, I
I
get
think
it.
you bring up a really good point, Reed. What are the weaknesses? And I think it's very easy to say offensive line first and foremost, right?
Right.
I think 95% of people are automatically going to say that. But what else?
linebacker, I guess, but we don't even really use linebackers that much. And
But
since you have Cam
see,
Curl who can kind of
I
fill that position, it doesn't really matter.
I love this argument because with linebacker, yeah, you could say it's the weak link on the
Right,
defense, and they shouldn't with former linebacker pros that are playing there. But the fact is, still a top 5 unit. They were very good against the run. It's not like the linebacker play is what has destroyed them. It's more so
right.
been the communication in the back end and the big plays is
Yeah,
what has really nipped them in the butt. And so it's always funny to me because at the end of the day, when you really look at this team, and yeah, you say offensive line is a weakness, but then besides that, if Sam Howell can be consistent,
what else is
this is a
there?
really good team.
Right. Yeah. And like with linebackers, like if this was the early 2000s, if this was like late 80s to early 2000s and our linebacker depth was very thin like this, I would be super concerned. It would have a huge effect on the game. 2023 doesn't really matter at this point. How often do you use 3 linebackers? How often, I mean, even 2, you're not using them every game. You're not using them every down. Plus, when you got safeties that could fill the void too, like Cam Curl can step up. All
I
these guys,
mean,
like,
the
they don't
one
really
thing
matter
about
anymore.
yeah, the one thing about Cam we have to remember is you have to look at Cam as almost like a linebacker,
Right.
but
Yeah.
he's not only doing that; he has other responsibilities. But that's like how productive and valuable he is to this defense because he's not just doing one thing; he's doing
Right.
multiple, and he
He's
fills a
playing
lot of holes
slot.
for them.
He's playing
I've said it
safety.
before; he's the
You know?
glue of the defense.
Yeah.
Like
You saw that
without
last year.
him, everything would fall apart, and you
Right.
kind of seen that in the defense when he's been out. Is that they can't stop the run at sometimes, and the big plays happen because the communication breaks down.
And
And
tight
there's
ends feast on us without Cam.
right, and
Cam
we
in
saw
there.
that at joint practices. I
Yeah, we
posted that
saw
one
him
video in
dogging that knockoff Travis Kelsey. That was sick.
that.
Yeah.
And then I absolutely loved Emmanuel Forbes when he swatted away the fade at the end of the
Yeah.
end zone, the
Yeah.
back of the end zone, and he puts up. He talks crap with his hands, and then Mark
Yeah.
Andrews walks away.
Dude, that
But
was
the
so
biggest
funny.
one of the biggest one of it all was Duvernay. I mean, without
Yeah.
a doubt, what a punk to be able to pick on the rookie like that. Not even that, when the guy's not even like looking at you, you run full speed and do that. The fact that
It
people
was
are commenting on it like Duvernay was a dog for doing that is that was worrying to me for
there's a,
society.
right. Who was I think it was Rio. Rio was funny as shit with that. Rio, because Rio's always funny, but Rio was like, dog, you had 2 catches last year. Emmanuel Forbes has more chains than you had catches last year. Like, what are you doing? Why, and it's true. You look up and says he had 2 catches last year.
And he's right. The guy's obviously fighting for a roster spot, but maybe he should
Yeah.
be doing that on the field rather than trying to fight a rookie. And I'm glad that our
Yeah.
boys
Especially, dude, I would fight Emmanuel Forbes. He's 160 pounds. Like, come on.
I
What are you
love how
doing?
you said that. It's so messed up, but it's true.
I mean, I wouldn't actually
No,
though, because
no, but after watching that video, though, I'd be kind of worried because Emmanuel Forbes has length,
dude,
but he
he's
had a
got
pretty good jab on
no.
him.
After seeing him in the joint practices and just really all camp, I wouldn't fight Emmanuel Forbes probably. But then again, I talk a big game, not as tough as I look. Emmanuel Forbes he's a bit of a dog, man. He's going out there
I
trying to
don't think
prove a
Emmanuel
point.
Forbes would be kind of worried or scared if you started crying,
Not at
which
all.
is
No.
typical
And
of you.
dude, it's so funny. I've never not cried during a fight. Not
Uh,
even saying that I lose all the time. Just even just he hit me.
a couple more
You know?
before we are joined by our guests here. The special teams. Kind of want to talk about the Joey Sly, the kicker competition, punter. Obviously, some people have been talking about Cheeseman. Hasn't
Yeah.
been accurate, very accurate with his long snaps back to the punter. Kind of want to talk about special teams in particular. Joey Sly hit that 49-yarder. Badgley had made his one extra point, and obviously Joey Sly hit his extra point. So he was like 2 for 2 for the day. Badgley was 1 for 1. We've kind of talked about this kicker competition up to this point. How are you feeling about it?
Good. So it's funny. I used to always sign Badgley in Madden like a few years ago. I would just always bring. I don't know why. He was just somebody he was always a free agent. His stats were always decent enough, and I would bring him in. I'd be like, yeah, I'm good. But I don't think you got to definitely keep Badgley's number. Keep him on deck unless Slide just starts messing up. But I don't think Slide really still has much to worry about. I mean, like I've said multiple times, I would not want to be the guy who cuts Joey Sly and go out there and he's just like tearing your car apart or something, or just throwing a desk at you and like, hey, he's still the guy until he starts messing up. If he goes through a little slump again, then it's sorry, not
Well,
Sly
then
enough.
also the returner is a huge topic of concern, obviously, for
Yeah.
everybody. Hall has been beating that drum for a very long time.
Yeah.
And he was very excited about Kaz Allen on
Mhm.
Monday, and for good reason. I just think it's funny because, like, yes, Kaz is very fast, like, but you haven't seen it yet. Like with Brandon Banks, after you return one, you're like, okay, yes, let's go.
Right.
But Kaz only did was return it to the opposite side of the field, and we're already saying, yeah, dude, that's our returner.
Like,
I just think
that's
it's
the guy. it's because Milne
I
Milne
know.
doesn't do anything. It's because all he does is catch the ball and be consistent. He's. I'm gonna be honest. Do you want a white guy back there returning kicks and punts? I don't think so. Not many I would take back there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, as long as
So
Kaz can catch the football, that's what's most important. I would obviously like him to be back there returning the football, but if it's going to be a punch kick, where you're going to be fair catching it, I would feel better with Dax Milne back there. But that's up to Kaz to be able to get the reps in order to show that he's not going to drop the football when it's kicked to him,
yeah,
because that's one of the things that is the biggest concern is turning over the football. Right, that's the
yeah.
biggest concern for the defense, and the offense has to be able to
The
get that
biggest thing
ball.
in football and just in general is turning the ball over. You know, it's fun. That reminds me. You know who was like always hailed as a great returner, and he was the man for a while until he came here. But he muffed a lot of punts. Antoine Randall L. Remember that? That was so frustrating watching him return punts with us. Like he was so good with the Steelers. Came here and it was like he couldn't hang on to anything, and he would just always run sideways and get tackled.
You say that, but like now let's break it down, dude.
Uh-huh.
Look at that, like when we used to have to like pay those type of guys to come here just to get talent at wide receiver,
Yeah, yeah,
and look at the wide receiver unit that we have right now.
yeah.
And like it wasn't that long ago, we were all
Three of them
sitting
were
here
drafted. Three
complaining,
of the
saying
top
that
four were drafted.
we don't have any talent outside.
Yeah.
All we have is offensive linemen. That's it. And look
Dude,
at
that was
us
just
now.
2 years ago, but that's why we drafted Jahan.
Right.
Yeah, it's just remember everybody's like Curtis Samuel was a bust too because he missed most of his first year with us. They're like he sucks. He's never going to see the field because that's what we do as fans. But
I remember all those people complaining about Jahan.
yeah,
And that was the
they
crazy,
did the
crazy.
same thing with Emmanuel Forbes
I
with that
know.
pick.
I know, and I get it, and I understand
Yeah,
why everybody wants offensive line. And look, I was a big proponent of DeJuan Jones, and I would have liked to see them get him. The one bad rep I saw was Braden Daniels on one-on-ones, and he just got destroyed onto his back. And it's not fair because the dude did a rep that doesn't really make sense. Like he like stutter stepped and then charged at him. Like, dude, you're not really gonna do that in the game. Like this isn't basketball. You're not trying to
right.
dribble like juke the guy out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
All right, now.
it's go ahead.
No, you're good. But now, best plays from joint practices of the past 2 days.
Uh, I mean, look, this is obviously I want to go with the Emmanuel Forbes pass breakup, but or against Odell, just that picture's sick. I don't care. It's not pass interference. Dude's playing it like a vet. He's
I
got his
argued
hand
with
over his
these dudes
visor.
about it. All right, first and foremost, like, because they said in the picture, he's not turned around, right? He's got his hand on him, right? First and foremost, you cannot judge a picture. You have to go back and rewatch it. And
Yeah,
if you go back and rewatch it,
picture's a moment in time.
Emmanuel Forbes does not jump and make contact with Odell until the ball arrives.
And
There
at
is
that point,
nothing, yeah,
right,
there's nothing saying that you're not allowed to be the wide receiver shadow. And just
right,
because Lamar throws that ball short, Odell
right.
has to stop. And then so Emmanuel Forbes, so he doesn't run into him, jumps up, and then deflects it. And you guys are crying about pass interference. It's not how it
Yeah,
works. If
right,
you make a play on the ball, you do have to turn around. If you're going to make
yeah,
contact with the wide receiver, you have to turn around.
right. But the other plays though, both by John Allen. One, obviously him trucking that guard. I know that was an undrafted kid.
Yeah,
That's
poor guy,
embarrassing. And it's
man.
John Allen. I mean, what
Yeah.
can you do? But it just shows his strength. And then also him flying through the line during the 11 on 11 and just stopping. Like if that was a game, they would have been done. But, that's just what John Allen does. John Allen does John Allen things. I don't think any of us should be shocked.
No, none of us should be. For me, was that throw from Sam Howell to Jahan Dotson. The Commanders highlighted it in their
Yeah.
video of just the beauty of that is the patience, the knowledge, and the accuracy and execution of that hitting that zone coverage. Because obviously the defense is coming out in vanilla. You know that you have to be able to decipher which coverage that they're in. It's not like the Ravens are saying, "Hey, this is what we're running this play, Sam," so you know. Sam has to
Right.
decipher that information and then have to link up with that route combo with that defensive formation. That's what they did there with Jahan. That soft zone, that deep crosser, perfectly in between them, allowing Jahan extra room to run after the catch. I think this is I can't tell you enough how impressed I am with the offense. I kind of expected this because the Ravens defense is not what it once was. I think we
Yeah.
a lot of the times kind of conflate the old times with new, and they've kind of transitioned away from
Yeah.
defensive minded. And
And transitioning is very popular right now, as you
it
know.
is, and
Yeah.
especially in your household.
Ask Bud Light. Yep. Only Bud Light in this household, baby.
And they did a very good job against the unit. And look, I've said it. I'm not sure if it was the Commanders because the Commanders wanted that video to be able to put out there without anyone else getting screen records of it. But the fact that the Ravens did not want to show the Washington first team offense against their first team defense, I think said a lot because
Yeah,
I'm betting you, dude, just from the small sample size I saw that they were dicing them up because their
yeah.
offense wasn't doing that to us.
No, not at all. And I mean, the Commanders are known around the NFL. The national media perception is, yeah, I mean, they got some guys, but they're not going to do much because the quarterback's holding them back. The offensive line's holding them back. Those are the two most important positions. But I don't think that's the case. I think you saw some of that from Sam Howell during the first preseason game, where like that one play where pocket broke down, he scrambled out of the pocket, picked up the first down. There was the one where John Bates dropped the ball but was wide open. Like, yeah, Sam Howell could play football. It's all there. So like I think that with these weapons now, and plus apparently the offensive line during some 11 on 11s. I know that they had their struggles at points during the scrimmage as to be expected, but they also apparently dominated at times, and that's surprising too. You know what I'm saying?
It is very surprising. But now
Yeah.
we are joined by our guests, Ref the District, our guys Nathan and Christopher Stone. How you guys doing, brother?
Doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. You guys
It's
sound
about
great.
time, guys. Jesus.
Yeah, I know,
absolutely. As I just unplugged my monitor here.
But guys, we're gonna wrap up this episode the last 30 minutes by going over fan questions in a roundtable format. But before we get into those, I wanted to get your guys' opinions because this has been kind of floated out there. Like, are joint practices necessary? Are they productive? Are they of value, or are they a waste of time? There's been kind of hypothetically talked about. So Stoner, I want to go to you first. What are your opinion on joint practices?
Yeah, man, I think joint practices are more valuable than preseason games because the tempo is so much higher in these practices, and you're getting out there and you're doing rep after rep after rep. Preseason games, you might get 5 or 6, maybe 10 reps, depending on which game it is. And even in the third game, you don't get any. So when you go out there in these practices, these joint practices, you're getting 50, 60, 70, 100 reps over a couple of days. So super valuable to have these joint practices.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that joint practices are very valuable. I know that the fights are something that can be a detriment and a distraction, but I think in Washington's case in particular, it was something that was needed. But the other aspect of it is when you're in a practice, if the first team offense is going, you need a scout defense. Usually the scout defense is already doing the first team defense already doing their thing. So you got to use offensive guys to act as scout team defense. When you do joint practices, you already have a scout team already handy ready for you by the Ravens with their second team defense.
Yeah.
And so it makes practice go by so much quicker, so allow to go in between drills, not as many bodies are needed, you have extra in that sense. I think joint practices are very valuable. What about you, Nathan?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even Coach Ron Rivera was talking about it analytically. The teams that do joint practices do better in the regular season than those that don't. And as far as the fights are concerned, I think as we start to see joint practices become more the norm, I think those will start to be reduced. Even the Commanders players themselves were fighting each other 9 days into training camp. It's just something you're going to see in a physical sport like football.
Right.
But the practice time is just invaluable, and especially with the reduction in preseason games. There's no longer 4 preseason games. You're not going to get those reps out there, that game time, but you will get this in a joint practice session.
Absolutely. And the practice is much more controlled in that kind of more so in that environment. If guys aren't getting paid, how hard are they really going to go? How much are you really going to get better on the field if you're not getting paid? And it's not really controlled. You don't want to get hurt. Everyone's looking at the regular season. What do you think, Reed?
I mean, even growing up as an all-state, really all-country 5-star football player, games are just different. It's games. You get up, you do games. You do what? Anywhere between 8 to 12 of them a season anyway when you're younger. And then, I mean, in NFL, it's even more than that. You've played them before. You've played in college. You know what games are like. But scrimmages, it's just a different vibe. It's like you're trying to go out there and assert your dominance over these guys. You're trying to show what you can do. You're trying to show that you guys are better. You're tougher. You've got each other's backs more. Your camaraderie is better. So it's so important for team building. That's why I think the Commanders aced it. I think we went out there and just slapping the Ravens in the mouth. That's all we've been hearing for the last 20 something years about how much better the Ravens are than us. And just wasn't the case. We played better and we just out alphaed them. You know what I'm saying?
We definitely
we treated them like I treat Kyle usually on this broadcast. Dominated.
And it wasn't like with the Texans came here, right? When D Hall, it was almost like we were inferior to the Texans, and it was just like we were getting it with the Ravens. Yeah. It's much so of toe to toe. We are up there with you. But to move this on to our fan questions, question was submitted by the Colonel. Nathan, I want to go to you with this. He says, I'm having a premonition that Jahan Dotson will be a superstar for us this year, even surpassing Terry McLaurin in all receiving categories to become our number one. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is actually something we just talked about last night on our show, which is Jahan Dotson is it, right? He's the dude, and he has all the skills possible. I mean, he's a filthy route runner. I do believe that he's a wide receiver one. Now, we have Terry McLaurin, and Terry's my guy. I see the jersey hanging behind you, Kyle. And, like, I love Terry, but this Jahan Dotson was taken in the first round for a reason. Terry McLaurin was a surprise from the third round. Jahan Dotson is him, and I do expect in 2 years, not this year, but in 2 years, Jahan Dotson is going to be wide receiver one on this team.
And it's only good news for Terry if Jahan shows out like that. What do you think, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, Terry's been begging for that since he's been here. He's like, guys, just get me some help, please. Somebody to roll these coverages away from me. So I think that would be best. Yeah, Jahan, like there was even last year during his rookie year, during camp, Commanders fan, we all knew, all we heard was like, this guy might be as good as Terry. Like this guy's very good. Like he can run routes, he catches everything. And then this offseason, all we heard is Sam Howell loves throwing to Jahan Dotson. That seems to be his favorite target. So if him and Howell grow together, for sure. Either way, will you unseat Terry? I have no idea. I think Terry's very special, but I think both of them, they can be right there. I mean, Colts had Reggie Wayne and, they had Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. They both worked out pretty well. So
yeah, well, it does help to have a very good quarterback who can distribute the football at will.
Sam Howell's the next Peyton Manning, dude. Remember Logan Paulson talked about it. So.
It's true. He did say that, and I think Sam Fortier did too. But the one surprising stat that I saw in our one chat with the 54th in the red zone guys, the last 5 games when they were run heavy, Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, their receptions were almost identical, same with yards and touchdowns, up until not touchdowns, but they were very similar. And I definitely could see that happening, but more so if that means that Terry is getting those chunk yardage, if you know what I mean. Like if he's getting those red zone targets, then that makes sense. But I think that at the end of the day, Terry McLaurin's excited about that. Just getting the eyes off of him and not even including that, the running backs. With Eric Bieniemy being able to use those guys, we've seen them used in the passing game more so attacking the seams and middle of the defense, something we haven't seen before. The fact that if Jahan blows up, I do think that that's going to pay huge dividends for everyone else down the line. What do you think, Stoner?
Yeah, for sure. The one thing I think you're going to see with McLaurin, it's not like all of a sudden Terry McLaurin is starting to fall off a little bit, because obviously he's not. But what you're going to see probably is you're going to see his more explosive plays. He's going to probably have less catches just because of the emergence of Jahan Dotson. And now with this KC offense, you're going to see a lot of running backs involved in the passing game. But you're going to see explosive plays because of everything that you guys have said. The eyes are going to be off him defensively a little bit more so than in the past. And so he's going to have the opportunities to do the things to get behind the defense and actually have somebody get him the ball behind the defense to where he can make things happen. So I wouldn't kind of count him out as far as being the number one guy over the next few years, but just look for his catches to come down a little bit, but his yards per catch to go up, and his touchdowns, which he hasn't scored a whole lot of touchdowns these first few years. I would expect those to go up.
I absolutely love to hear from training camp, Ron Rivera and Terry McLaurin both highlighting the fact that Sam Howell, when he does escape the pocket, he's keeping his eyes downfield. One of the reasons why I was not as high on Sam Howell as I was Desmond Ridder was specifically for that reason. Sam Howell was running a lot, wasn't keeping his eyes downfield. He's really progressing into something, man, and if he continues to do this, we could have something fun in our hands. But, Stoner, I want to go to you with this question. This guy, Alid from Wales, oi! Thank you, brother. His question is, what about with all the noise on making Ron Rivera name the starting quarterback? What's the pros and cons of that, naming and not naming one?
Yeah, I think there's probably a psychological advantage for Ron Rivera and the coaching staff. Look, if you don't name him the starter, let him keep that edge about him. Let him keep that I'm still fighting for this job mentality. And I think that's really helps with his progression, to keep his nose in the books and to keep him out there every day saying, look, I have not been anointed the starter of this team. I've got to keep fighting and working every single day. So I think that helps in that particular way. But there are guys on this team, especially the receivers, who just want it named. Look, I want to know who the guy is, and then we're going to go out there and we're going to work on that. But I will say, make no mistake, Sam is number one. He has been number one from the beginning. He's gotten all the reps except for one series and 1 day at training camp. So they pretty much know. It just hasn't been solidified via Ron Rivera yet.
Yeah, and I think Jacoby Brissett's signing signified that quite heavily, Stoner, to your credit. What about you, Nathan? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows who QB1 is. Ron could wait and tell us. There's no advantage going up against the Cardinals. The Cardinals, this is a new offense, right? This isn't Scott Turner, and you're not studying that film from last year. Even the Cowboys games, it's not very useful this year. So there's no technical advantage and going into week 1 for that. Maybe Stoner's right on the psychological end, but even the teammates know. They all know who QB1 is. They're all rallying around him. People can get, their panties in a bunch there about, it's not named yet, but we all know who it is. It's Sam Howell, and we're ready to get to the season.
Yeah, and I think you guys are absolutely right. For me, I kind of correlate it to getting mad at your spouse for not updating their relationship status on Facebook. Come on, you just do what, does it really matter?
It's not face official, Kyle.
Right, yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean, though? It's kind of one of those things like it's not really necessary. It doesn't matter at the grand scheme of things. I know. Does it really matter? I think more so it comes down to the media members being upset that info was not supplied to them, that they can release it, because that's where it really is value. So they could come out and say, I'm the one that found out that Sam Howell was a starter, just to get those clicks. Because really it doesn't matter. You could say the day before the first game who the starter. It doesn't really matter. It's just I think it's like an imagination type thing, making something out of nothing, in my personal opinion. The cons of it, there isn't any cons to not naming a starter. Like, name me one. Like, I can't.
I got nothing.
Yeah, it's a blank slate. I mean, there's really nothing negative about not naming it outside of the fans get angry. Oh no, it's malarkey is what it is.
I mean, being Facebook official though, like the whole point is so everybody else knows that you're not a virgin anymore and that you're not a disappointment to your parents. So that's why you do that. I guess it can be the same thing in the NFL. Every team's doing it though. I mean, every team's naming starters early. I like this kind of throwback. We all know, like you guys said, we all know it's Sam Howell. But it's kind of nice to have a throwback coach back there, because people used to not be named starters during legit quarterback battles until, the very end. So,
that's it, Reed. You said legit quarterback battles.
Right.
This one is not a legit
quarterback.
No, it is not.
True.
And I did like that Rivera said that he wasn't going to name the starter until he talked to Eric Bieniemy and Coach DeVita. I think that's very important here, showing that Eric Bieniemy does have control over that offense and what happens. And Eric Bieniemy is probably harder on Sam than anybody else is on that team, and that's why Coach is saying, it's not up to me. It's up to Eric. We'll see what he says. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now let's move on to our Discord chat for their next round of questions. This one from Tony Shivers. Nathan, which position group do you think has the most quality depth? I used to think D-line, no questions. Now wide receivers look like a good group. And with guys like Butler, Reeves, Johnson, Holmes, Quan, etc. behind the starters, I'm leaning more towards defensive backs.
Yeah, the defensive backs have really kind of shown out this offseason, which is nice because that was kind of the weakness of a top 5 defense last year. The wide receiver group, I think, has a lot of potential, but really that's unrealized potential. Even going down to your third guy in Curtis Samuel, he's somebody who's been on this team and hasn't really produced the way that we thought he was going to produce when coming from Carolina. So I wouldn't go with the wide receivers, even though 1 and 2 is just great. The defensive line depth is great, whether or not Fedarian Mathis plays or not. And that is absolutely great. The good find last year in Ridgeway off of the Dallas practice squad, that guy is a monster. And if he can just suplex another dude this year, I will get a Ridgeway jersey.
I wish he did it to Mark Andrews.
Right. What was up with Cody Barton not going in defense?
What was that about?
Sorry to get off track there, Kyle, but that bothered me.
Cody?
It seemed like he was trying to listen to Rivera, or he was stunned. One or the other, or he's not just not used to it. He is a pretty boy. Those pretty boys don't like to get their faces messed up. You know what I mean?
Right.
What
so
about
to finish out the answer, I'm going to just tell you defensive line is, because I didn't actually give I kind of went through the 3 position groups, but defensive line is actually the one I think has the most quality depth on this roster.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Potato as well has been showing out and doing pretty well. What about you, Stoner? What do you think has the most quality depth?
Yeah, you guys might be sleeping on the running back room. because you've got a 1-2 punch with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, and Gibson is being pushed so far back now that they're talking about him in a JD McKissick type role as just a third down guy, because Robinson has emerged as a pass catching threat as well. And then when you go to that third spot, which I think is going to be a huge battle between Jonathan Williams and Chris Rodriguez Jr., the draft pick this year. And then you've got guys like Derek Gore is no slouch, and Jarrett Patterson has been with this team for, this is I think his third year now that he's been hanging around the team. That is something. The running back room has a quality depth to it, and I think they're going to be okay if there's something happens with the first two guys. But those first two guys are both very talented in both running the ball and receiving out of the backfield.
This is big news to me, guys, because Stoner's called Brian Robinson a jag.
No, I said last season he was a jag.
Okay. Right. Moving the goalposts.
I
moving the goalposts.
In Brian Robinson's defense, he was coming off of an injury.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to help him out a little bit. But to your credit, with Eric Bieniemy, even going back to Kansas City, you can go back to his days at Minnesota with the Vikings coaching Adrian Peterson. His running backs always show out, and the depth was obviously clearly evident last year in Kansas City with guys like Pacheco, McKinnon coming out of nowhere and really being productive for that offense. More than you can feel confident with that depth there. For me personally, I'm going to go with tight end. I really do love the depth that we have at tight end with Cole Turner and John Bates. I think that they're shoo-in and good. The fact that Cole Turner has progressed as a blocker the way that he has. Obviously I'm the president of the Cole Turner fan club, but he came in as a jump ball red zone tight end. And when seeing him blocking the way that he is showing that he is capable of being a number one tight end. Then you look at John Bates, who, isn't the best pass catcher. And yes, he dropped that ball against Cleveland, and we'll never forgive him for that. But it is preseason. He can learn from it. I just am very confident with this tight end group and what we do have there. The big bodies, that easy receptions for them. I know wide receiver is stacked, same with defensive line, but I'm really liking this tight end setup. What about you, Reed?
Dude, I mean, with the tight ends, the best young guy might not even be playing. Amari Rogers is called on to the tight end position so fast. They found ways to get him the ball last year, but you guys took all the positions. But I think obviously it's got to be defensive backs. I mean, you just look at corner. We've got depth. We've got guys at safety. We've got depth. We've got guys. We got versatility with the safeties who can play corner, safeties that can play linebacker. They can fill in, and you just special teams guy. You just got to feel good with the depth at corner and safety, and that's a far cry from last year when we were bringing in Wild Goose. We're bringing in some of these guys, so. I love the fact that they doubled up with Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin, just solidified this secondary and made it one of the best young units in the NFL.
My boy Quan, leave him alone. He'll be fine.
Quan's gonna be
I
good.
agree. He's going to be just fine. He's a second round rookie that they're making play safety, slot, outside. Right. Like he's having to learn all these positions in his first year in the NFL. He's going to be just fine. I think the talent is there. He just needs some time to develop.
One thing I will say is, have we not learned from Jahan Dotson and Emmanuel Forbes?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
People got to start leaving Benjamin St. Juste alone too. Benjamin St. Juste, he's going to be fine. He's good.
I picked on him on Monday, and then he came out against the Ravens. Actually showed out pretty well.
Yeah, I know exactly. And then Kendall Fuller. I saw somebody tweet this out, and it's so true. Kendall doesn't really get going until November anyway, so it's fine. Kendall always struggles early on.
He's criminally underrated, Kendall Fuller. Yeah, people want to dog on him, but he is actually a top cornerback in this league. Right. He's
top 10
good.
for sure.
Yeah, at the end of the season last year, he was obviously productive in the turnover situation. That is obviously very important to this coaching staff. This next question, Stoner, I want to go to you from Tim Towner, and this is a fantastic one. The following is a list of quarterback traits. Make an argument for the one you think a quarterback must excel in. And the list here is, my goodness, of course I lose it now right after I click on it. Arm strength, accuracy, touch, mechanics, field vision, decision making, compete level and toughness, in the pocket, rushing ability, and second reaction.
What was the third one? No, I'm just kidding. I think out of all of those, I would probably go with decision making, because decision making is not a physical trait. Most of those are physical traits that you can kind of improve upon by just work in weight room or reps and this and that. But decision making kind of plays into all those other things. If you have a rocket arm, if you have proper footwork, if you have all these other things, but you don't process what you're seeing in front of you and then making a quick decision, the right decision, all that other stuff doesn't matter. I think that's kind of what Taylor Heineke was able to get by on all those years, because he didn't have all those physical traits, but he did have the understanding of an offense and understanding of the defenses that they're throwing at him, and that he can then process that, make the right decision. He couldn't execute as well as we would have liked him to, because he didn't have the physical traits. But decision making out of all those, absolutely, that's the biggest one.
And there is a second part to this question, but I'm going to wait till we all answer to get to that, Stoner, so I'll make sure to come to you first. What about you, Nathan?
You can't make the right decision if you don't see the field. So seeing the field is probably the most important thing there, because you have to be able to, see where the safety is. You need to see that linebacker is being pushed back. You need to see where the wide receivers are breaking. And if you can't see that, you're never going to make the right decision. Like Stoner said, a lot of those other things, even accuracy, right? That's just a rep thing. You're going to get that down. You can work on your mechanics, but if you cannot see the field, and we've seen this in a lot of young quarterbacks, they just fail. So you got to be able to see the field. Number one trait you need in a QB.
What about you, Reed? I like this.
Yeah, so I think obviously those are probably two of the most important, but I'm going to go with accuracy. I mean, when you look at
Drew Brees,
some of these guys, I know that Josh Allen kind of defeated the myth that like accuracy can't be taught, but Josh Allen's rare. But like you're talking prime Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, these guys, Joe Burrow, these guys that can just put it anywhere that they want, and they like that. You can't do anything about that. Like if you're a defender, what can you do about a perfectly placed pass? You can't do anything about it. And
you're right.
So
Kendall
there's some
Fuller
of these guys
did
that
just talk about that with Sam Howell, saying that the best quarterbacks he's gone against, he's learned from and seen that they put the ball in places where you just simply cannot get to it. And he said he has seen that in Sam Howell up until this point. Obviously, he's helping his teammate out a little bit, but talking him up. But that's not easy praise,
Right. But like, so all of these things, all those things though kind of come together. Like when you look at the greats, like, I don't know, I mean, super accurate passers. Kurt Warner was very accurate. I mean, there's all these guys that didn't have many other traits like arm strength or some of these things, but then processing and understanding all this stuff kind of goes into it, the field vision. So it's interesting. But if I'm just talking traits, give me somebody that's accurate, and just if I'm running a West Coast offense, just give me somebody accurate. I'll be good.
For me, it's field vision. I agree with Nathan here. It is the most important for me personally. Obviously, I talked about earlier with Sam Howell, keeping his eyes downfield when he escaped out of the pocket, not running for his life whenever chance that he could. And I think field vision goes a long way. If you're able to see the entire field, see what is going on, and not be confused like a deer in headlights like Carson Wentz last year against some teams later on in the year, it really can go a long way. And I think that that's most important for any quarterback. But also the side note off that, I think in the pocket is aligned with that. I think pocket movement, the one thing about Tom Brady is not only does he have the field vision, but he is a wizard in the pocket, man. He knows where that rush is coming. Yeah. Even when he has eyes the back of his head, he's able to come out left when that rush is getting too wide. And that's just something you need from experience, repetition going through all this. But I really, really like that question. Thank you, Tim. And to elaborate, Stoner, his question is, of all these traits, which one do you think Sam Howell has a chance to excel at and could be elite? Same for Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, Jacoby Brissett, I'm gonna pass on that, because I don't ever want to see Jacoby Brissett. I'll be honest. I don't want to see him not even one time this entire year. But what is the question? What does he have a chance to excel at, or what does he excel at?
What he has a chance to excel at and be elite?
Ooh, let's go to the vision then that you guys have all kind of agreed with, that's what he has a chance to be really, really good at, and that just comes with reps. That comes with the understanding of Eric Bieniemy's offense, all of that. I think what we've seen so far, let's be honest, is I'm kind of in your camp, Kyle, that I was not a howler. I was very suspect on him for a while, but everything that we've seen so far, when the bullets are flying in preseason, in the one game, and even in these joint practices, he has figured something out in seeing the field and seeing where the guys are, what matchups he wants to exploit, and getting it to guys in space. He's done a really good job of that, and he's done nothing but improve in that since last year. So that's probably what I'd go with.
I like that answer. What about you, Nathan?
Well, I think we've seen some of it, and Kendall Fuller talked about it, and that's that accuracy, putting that ball I mean, we saw that in the Dallas game. He put that ball to the outside of Jahan Dotson, which took Jahan to the sideline and up the field. And we've seen it here in camp time and time again. I wanted to say arm strength because this is the first time Terry had to like accelerate for a pass in his entire career. But there's other QBs that have that kind of arm strength. But he is able to put this ball in places where only his wide receiver or his tight end or his running back's going to get it. And I think that's why he's going to end up excelling in this Eric Bieniemy offense.
That's how Reed likes his men too, and I think everyone else would agree.
Yeah.
For me personally, what I think he's going to excel at, I think, is what he has the most control over, and I think that's decision making. And I think that he has kind of proved that up until this point. Coach Rivera has talked about it at times. He knows he's making the right decisions. He's not crumbling. He's doing everything that he needs to. That's what he can control. The other things there might be issues, offensive line, play call, whatever have you. But decision making is something that he can excel at and be an elite at. And then it's all based on Sam Howell. And everything I've seen up until this point, I just see confidence and I see eagerness to get better. And I see that chip on his shoulder of being that 5th round pick. And if you're able to put that all in, you could be an elite decision maker. And in this offense, with Eric Bieniemy calling the plays, with how much movement's going on, having a very smart quarterback in that setting is crucial and could be very valuable for you. What about you, Reed?
Yeah, decision making probably just because like with more experience he gets, the more he's going to understand defenses, the more he's going to understand what guys like to do, what his offense is going to do. So with games and repetitions, that's going to come. I think so. That's probably what he has the best chance at. But I'm going to say playmaking in general, just being able to get out of the pocket. Hopefully, like talked about, keeping his eyes downfield, knowing when to climb in the pocket, knowing when to roll out, knowing when to get rid of the ball fast. I think that Sam Howell, those are two things that just come with experience, and he's got all the other physical traits. Yeah.
Great question by Tim Towner, man. I really did enjoy that. This next question from Twitter, Stoner, I'm going to go to you, from Andy Burrows in the UK. Oi!
Andy.
With the Ryder Cup round the corner, what are you guys thinking with the Europeans and stateside hit the course in a few weeks? I will say, Andy is probably a very good golfer. I haven't played with him yet, but he's a very good pool player.
Tell me the guy that's good at everything is probably good at golf too. I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, shocker. With his wrestling podcast, he's absolutely just blowing up, isn't he?
And he's amazing at soccer. And
yeah, I can't wait for them to come and tell my bad, Stoner. I did not read
he's
the
amazing
question
at drinking.
Yeah. But
we all love ourselves some Andy, so it's good.
Yeah. Oh,
he's
absolutely.
amazing at that UK impression that he always does.
he's spot on. I mean, he's very accurate
crazy.
with it.
Yeah.
Now, the last question from Tim Towner in the Discord, Stoner. My bad, finally got it. I see Baltimore as Keaton Mitchell, the running back from East Carolina. The guys covering the joint practice session implied he might make the 53. I would love to steal some young talent like Mitchell from this year's draft that others try to slip to their practice squad. But in order to do that, we'd need to have an open spot in our 53. So, who do you see on our team that has been underperforming and may be at risk of being released?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this probably about a week ago, but lately I've been dumped on a little bit. But Sadiq Charles better be worried about not just his starting position at left guard. He better be worrying about a spot on the 53, because this is year number 4 now for him, and he was brought in. And, he was a 4th rounder, but he came in as a guy who's expected to be a starter at some point. And here he is. He still can't get on the field consistently for practices, for preseason, for the regular season, all that. I think he's going to struggle to make the 53 this year if he doesn't just come out. There's only a couple weeks left, right? If he doesn't come out here in these last couple of weeks and just practice every day and show out, then he's gonna struggle to even make the team.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm not sure about being released, but I think Braden Daniels might have a chance of being pushed to the practice squad. And I think that's
100%.
Crazy. And I know that's kind of crazy to say, but with the 4th round pick and everything, but just the way the offensive line is shaping out and how Tyler Larson and Ricky Stromberg are both trying out at guard. Because we talked to Sam Fortier and he said, basically you can't keep more than that. You're going to need to have those backups there to be moved around a little bit. And that being said, those guard spots are taking up, and everything that we've heard up at this point is that he's most likely going to be guard. So what's going to happen? Are you going to release maybe somebody that could help you as a backup that's is crucial and valuable? And that's my big question. And Stoner, you hit it right in the nail on the head with Sadiq with his injuries, because availability is the best thing that you could possibly have for this football team, especially on the offensive line with all the injuries that we had last season. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, so this is going to be one of those interesting kind of games that's played, a little shell game by all the NFL teams that they do. They're going to cut somebody who they don't think is going to get picked up off of waivers or the practice squad and they'll keep somebody you didn't think. Like Mason Brooks might make the initial 53,
Right.
just till the rosters kind of settle, and then they'll cut him to get him on the practice squad where they know they can actually keep him and develop him. And because of that, I do think you have a chance of more likely a Sadiq Charles or Braden Daniels, who by all accounts has not developed. So if they do think Sadiq Charles can stay healthy, he has the talent, you're going to keep Sadiq Charles, but Braden Daniels has kind of struggled to get to this NFL level. So maybe one of those, but I'm going to go a different direction. I think that Dax Milne is the one who's probably on the chopping block here, and he's going to be. I think he is a very qualified
But
wide
he had
receiver.
a one-handed catch in practice, Nathan.
It's such a wonderful
But he doesn't
one-handed
drop
catch.
punts.
Yeah,
He also doesn't return them.
That is good. Yeah. But I mean, we brought on so many talented wide receivers, some from the Bieniemy,
and with Diami
tree.
panning out.
And Diami Brown is looking like he's finally ready to be wide receiver 3, not 4, but 3. Right. Like he's actually going to do some well here. So I just think that Dax Milne, who was kind of an end of the roster guy last year, plus these, I mean, are you going to keep Kashmir Allen or Dax Milne? If you can only keep one, you're probably going to go with the boom bust guy rather than the reliable guy, which is what Dax Milne is, especially because, again, you can stash him on the practice squad.
Yeah, and I thought one of the best plays from the first preseason game was that out pass from Jacoby Brissett to Diami Brown, who caught it for that first down, that toe tapper, because the short yardage, minute middle of the field kind of route running is what Diami has needed to get better at, and the fact that he toe tapped it, showing what you just said, Nathan, kind of being ready for that third receiver role. I wholeheartedly agree. I think Diami has really taken a step forward, and not only just with Sam Howell throwing the football, that was with Jacoby, which says a lot about where Diami is at the moment. What do you think, Reed?
Yeah, I think all you guys stole every single one that I was about to end up saying, but
All of them.
I think if you just look at numbers, I mean, somebody in the secondary, I mean, just doubling up in the secondary, bringing in all these guys, somebody at corner or safety, somebody's going to end up getting cut, and everybody's going to be like, oh my God, how did that happen? Same with the defensive line. But will we be able to bring in another John Ridgeway? I don't know, but I sure as hell hope so. If we can get a John Ridgeway in the secondary, sign me up. I'll do that.
I got a surprise one that I want to throw out at you that I don't think it's going to happen. And I just want to kind of, ruffle little feathers here. But Mr. Jamin Davis has not done a whole lot this particular year. I don't think he's going to get cut. I mean, it's like a less than 1%. But I don't think he's grown either in this now his third year. So I would look for that. Probably not this year, but next year, that might be a surprise cut in camp next year.
He's linebacker too, if nothing else. Cody Barton has shown every reason why they signed him to this roster because he's been flashing. He kind of misses out. He kind of shoots the gap a little too early, but yeah, and he misses the fights. But he's been realistic, and as the team shifted to a 5-1-5. Cody Barton's been the linebacker out there, not Jamin Davis.
Right. The only team that would sign Jamin Davis that would probably be the Virginia State Police. I think they would pick him up real fast.
Yeah. Well, they'd have trouble catching him though.
No,
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
they would pick him up really fast. But that brings up the great question that you brought up, Reed, of meaning this secondary of what happens with them, because there are some very quality guys, some long tenured guys that they're going to have to make some decisions with, and it's going to be tricky.
And then there's some young guys like Christian Holmes coming out and forcing somebody off the roster.
Unfortunately, some very talented guys are most likely not going to be on this roster come week 1, and that is unfortunate. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this episode, everybody. I can't thank you guys for tuning in and submitting and supporting us. Boys, Nathan Stoner, this was a pleasure. A long time coming, of course. We haven't done this yet, and I'm glad that we were able to, because we needed some help without Hall here. We needed some wisdom, some intellect actually brought into this room here, and I'm glad that we called you guys because you were the perfect recipe for it.
Well, we appreciate you having us on. It has been a long time coming. We'll have to get you on Ref the District as well.
Yes, sir, absolutely. You just have to make sure you're in Reed's time frame because he's very bougie in that sense. He doesn't have.
I'm a diva. Yeah, I'm a bit of a diva. I have kind of become a diva lately. I've noticed that too. I'm like, you know what? If it's not after 6, I'm not doing it.
Sorry, makes sense. You and Jahan. Well, all right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you guys enough for being able to come in and tune in with us. I'm Kyle.
Who am I this week? I am Daniel Kelly.
Not again. Not again. All right, everybody. We'll see
NFL
you
scout, Daniel Kelly.
on Monday, right before the game will be airing out. So I appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.